Imagine for a second. You're reading a news story about someone buying an apartment in central Oslo with Bitcoin, and suddenly it clicks, oh shit, I have 8,000 coins. Then you realize those coins are on a hard drive you threw out months ago. At today's exchange rate, that's over $360 million. Today, I'm going to tell you the incredible story of James Howells, one of the first 5 people in the world to start mining Bitcoin back in 2009. A man who accidentally sent a fortune, exceeding the budget of a small country, to a landfill. But the most astonishing part of this story isn't the monetary loss itself, but his 12-year obsessive battle to get them back, a battle that led him to create his own cryptocurrency. This is a story about how one fateful mistake can change an entire life and transform an ordinary IT professional into a crypto legend. James Howells, now 38, lives in the small town of Newport, Wales. In 2008, he was just an IT engineer working from home. But unlike most people, James didn't trust mainstream media and actively sought information about what was really happening in the world during the financial crisis. It was then, in late 2008, while browsing financial forums, that he stumbled upon a strange project on the SourceForge website. It was Bitcoin, an experimental digital currency described in a white paper by the enigmatic Satoshi Nakamoto. James immediately understood its core concept. He knew that the Napster network couldn't be shut down, and therefore, the Bitcoin network couldn't be stopped either. This idea captivated him. It was early 2009. Bitcoin had just launched, and there were only 5 anonymous individuals in the world running the software. There were no wallets, no blockchain explorers, no exchanges, absolutely nothing. There was only the wallet program and the white paper. James became one of these 5 pioneers. There was no one else on the network to interact with. No one to send coins to. No one to even test transactions with. He tried to get his friends interested, but they showed no interest in this digital experiment. James began mining Bitcoin on his gaming laptop at night when he wasn't using the computer. It was purely experimental. No one knew what Bitcoin would become in the future. Back then, the process wasn't called mining, but generating coins. For about 10 weeks, his laptop ran all night, generating digital coins. During this time, he managed to accumulate 8,000 Bitcoins. At the exchange rate of those days, each coin was worth mere pennies, less than a cent. But this experiment had a downside. The laptop got extremely hot, and the fans ran at full blast all night. The noise bothered his girlfriend, and she constantly complained about the humming that kept her awake. At some point, James succumbed to the pressure and stopped mining. As he puts it, he was forced to stop. Bitcoin seemed like an interesting but useless toy that took up disk space and interfered with normal life. Time passed. By 2010, the laptop started malfunctioning and eventually broke down completely. James disassembled it for parts. Some components could still be used to repair other equipment. He kept the hard drive containing the private keys to his 8,000 Bitcoins in a drawer in his home office. For the next 3 years, James was completely disengaged from the world of cryptocurrencies. He focused on starting a family, raising children, and his career. Bitcoin seemed like a forgotten experiment from the past. In the summer of 2013, James decided to do a thorough cleanup of his home office. After years of working as an IT engineer, he had accumulated a lot of broken equipment, old components, and unnecessary wires. In one drawer, there were 2 very similar hard drives, both silver with white labels, typical for laptop drives. One was an empty 20-gigabyte drive that had never been used. The second contained all his backups, files, photos, music, and of course the folder with his Bitcoin wallet. The fateful mistake happened in an instant. James wanted to throw out the empty 20-gigabyte drive. In the age of terabyte storage, it was useless. But in his haste, he mixed up the drives and grabbed the wrong one. The hard drive with all his data and the Bitcoin wallet went into a black trash bag. James placed the bag outside his house, planning to take it to the landfill himself in the morning. But in the morning, when he woke up, the bag was gone. As he delicately puts it, the bag left his house without permission or consent. The garbage truck had already picked it up and taken it to the Newport City landfill. 5 or 6 weeks passed. James lived his normal life, completely unaware of the magnitude of his mistake. Meanwhile, Bitcoin was experiencing its first serious bull run. From $40 in the summer, the price began to climb rapidly towards what was then an all-time high of $1,100. In October 2013, James was reading the BBC and stumbled upon an article about a guy from Oslo who had bought $20 worth of Bitcoin, waited for it to rise to $1,100, and used the proceeds to buy an expensive apartment in the city center. And then something clicked in James's head. As he recounts, imagine reading an article about Bitcoin, and suddenly it instantly clicks in your head. Oh damn, I've 8,000 coins, and they were on that hard drive. Instinctively, he ran to the drawer where the Bitcoin drive should have been. But all he found there was the empty 20-gigabyte drive, the very one he had intended to throw out initially. The realization came gradually, but it was horrifying. James opened a blockchain explorer, found his wallet address, and watched a nightmare unfold. The balance of his wallet grew every day along with the price of Bitcoin. $300,000? $800,000. $1,200,000. $3,800,000. $6,400,000. And so on, until a peak of $9.9 million when Bitcoin reached $1,100 at the end of 2013. For several weeks, James was in shock and told no one what had happened. He sat at his computer every day, refreshing the price page, thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? Finally, in late November, he decided to tell his girlfriend. The conversation began cautiously. Remember that Bitcoin software I was running a few years ago? Yes. Well, those 8,000 coins I mined were on a hard drive that accidentally ended up in the landfill a few months ago. They're now worth $9.9 million. Her first reaction was disbelief. You're kidding. You're laughing at me. But when James showed her the blockchain and proved the seriousness of the situation, she said a phrase that would define the rest of his life. Well, you'd better go to the dump then, wouldn't you? That same day, James got in his car and drove to the Newport landfill. No prior calls, no arrangements. He simply showed up at the operational office and said, "Is there any chance I could speak to whoever's in charge here?" The meeting with Glyn Jones, the landfill manager, became a turning point in the story. Imagine the reaction of a man who had managed a landfill for 18 years when a stranger walks in and declares, "There's a hard drive worth $10 million in your landfill." Surprisingly, Glyn took James seriously. Perhaps the look on his face conveyed the sincerity of his desperation. Glyn even drove James around the landfill in a truck and showed him the waste disposal processes. An important detail: in 2013, this landfill had no crushing, sorting, or material recovery for recycling. Everything that went into the general waste containers was buried on site. And due to strict British regulations, nothing that had passed through the weighbridge could leave the landfill premises. This meant that James's hard drive was definitely somewhere in that landfill. The next 10 years became a true nightmare of battling bureaucracy for James Howells. He offered the Newport City Council every conceivable condition for cooperation. First, he simply asked for permission to search, promising to cover all costs. He was rejected due to environmental concerns. Then he offered the city a share of the find, first 10%, then 15%, then 20%. The authorities didn't even reply to his letters. James assembled a team of leading waste retrieval experts, the same specialists a government would consult for such an operation. He developed a detailed plan to minimize environmental damage. But the city authorities refused to even talk. By 2017, when Bitcoin reached almost $20,000, James's story became an international sensation. The lost 8,000 coins were theoretically worth $160 million. Investors, tech companies, and documentarians approached him. Plans were proposed using specialized equipment, metal detectors, and X-ray scanners. In 2021, the peak of the madness occurred. Bitcoin reached an all-time high of $69,000, and James's lost coins were theoretically worth over $550 million. $500 million lay buried under the trash. At this point, James made the most generous offer of his life. He officially offered the Newport City Council 25% of the recovered Bitcoins. At the exchange rate of that time, this meant over $130 million for the city budget. $130 million. This money would be enough to build dozens of schools, hospitals, repair all the city's roads, and fund social programs for years to come. James organized a petition, collecting thousands of signatures from residents who supported the project. But even this offer was ignored. Desperate, James decided to go through the courts. He spent huge amounts of money on a legal team, prepared a 300-page document justifying his right to access his own property. The result was shocking. The case was heard for only 3 hours. James was not allowed to say a word, and the decision came via email. The court rejected the case without even considering the arguments on their merits. In that same year, 2021, another painful event occurred. The price of Bitcoin began to fall from its all-time highs. James watched as the value of his lost coins decreased from $550 to $400, then to $300 million. The last attempt was the most desperate. In 2024, James offered the city $25 million cash to buy the landfill plot. He wrote 3 official letters to the council's legal team, the leader of the city council, and the member of parliament for Newport. None of them even replied. "What else do you want me to try?" James asks. "Raise an army and march on the king himself." By early 2025, James Howells officially announced that he was ceasing attempts to access the landfill. But he emphatically denies the word "gave up." As he says, "I have a problem with the phrasing 'gave up' because I would say I haven't given up. I've just been completely blocked." And then an incredible twist occurs. Remember Glyn Jones, the landfill manager who first drove James to the burial site in 2013? Glyn retired from the city council and joined James's team. The man who built that landfill and managed it for 18 years is now working with the team to recover the lost drive. The irony of fate, the one who buried the disk is now helping to find it. But the most intriguing development began in 2024. Realizing that traditional methods weren't working, James made a drastic decision. If he couldn't physically access his Bitcoins, he would create a digital copy of them. And then James came up with an ingenious solution. He decided to create his own cryptocurrency called Kyocoin, named after an ancient Welsh coin that disappeared centuries ago. The idea is as simple as it gets. James will create exactly as many new digital coins as he had lost Bitcoins. It's a kind of digital copy of his treasure at the landfill. The main feature is that each new Kyocoin will be tied to his lost Bitcoins. It's like an IOU. I, James, owe you X Bitcoins when I find my drive. And anyone can go online and check if those 8,000 Bitcoins are really there. James emphasizes that this isn't just a novelty coin for fun. He wants to create a fully functional cryptocurrency that people can actually use. As he says, most people just buy Bitcoin and hold it in their wallet for years, doing nothing with it. I've been doing that for 12 years, and it's boring. Bitcoin was created to be used as money, not just stored like gold. Kyocoin is planned to launch in late 2025. Meanwhile, his lost 8,000 Bitcoins are worth about $360 million. Imagine in 16 years, their value has increased tens of millions of times. James's story fundamentally changed the crypto community's attitude towards security. Thanks to him, millions of people learned about the importance of backing up private keys. Modern wallets have multiple layers of protection precisely because developers have accounted for such cases. Special steel plates for recording seed phrases, capable of withstanding fires and floods, have emerged. People have become more serious about the security of digital assets. Cybersecurity educational materials invariably mention James's story as a cautionary tale. By various estimates, 3 to 4 million bitcoins are lost forever, approximately 20% of all existing coins, worth hundreds of billions of dollars. James's story is just the most famous of thousands of similar cases. The psychological consequences for James have been colossal. 12 years of constant stress, obsessive thoughts about lost money, periodic depressions, and strain on family relationships. Psychologists note signs of post-traumatic stress disorder related to financial loss. But at the same time, the search became the meaning of his life. James transformed from a simple IT specialist into an expert in waste recycling, environmental law, and data recovery technologies. The philosophical side of the story runs even deeper. Bitcoin was created as a decentralized currency, free from banking and government control. But this freedom comes at a price: complete responsibility for the security of funds. There is no bank to restore access, no customer service to reset a password. Lose your keys, lose your money forever. James often ponders an alternative history. Most likely, he would have sold his bitcoins much earlier, at $100 or $1,000. Few early miners waited for the maximum prices. Perhaps the irony is that only by losing access to his coins could he become a theoretical multi-billionaire. James Howells' story is a modern parable about the price of progress and responsibility in the digital world. Here are the main lessons everyone should remember. First, create multiple backups. If you have crypto assets, ensure you have at least 3 copies of your seed phrase or private keys in different secure locations. Second, never underestimate new technologies. Bitcoin seemed like a toy in 2009. Today, it's an asset worth over $1 trillion. Which modern technology will be the next Bitcoin? Third, use only proven storage methods. Write down seed phrases on paper or metal plates, not digitally. Learn about cold storage principles. Never keep large sums on exchanges. Fourth, check old devices before disposal. Forgotten wallets may be stored on old computers, hard drives, or flash drives. History knows many cases of lucky finds years later. Fifth, remember the psychological side of investments. Invest only what you are prepared to lose. Don't let financial setbacks destroy your life and relationships with loved ones. $360 million lies somewhere several meters deep under British trash. Every change in Bitcoin's price means this fortune increases or decreases by tens of millions of dollars. But for James, these figures remain just figures, a dream that may never become a reality. Perhaps future technologies will allow the disk to be found without environmental damage. Perhaps the Newport authorities will one day change their minds. Perhaps the disk has long since disintegrated from time and moisture. But James isn't giving up. He's simply found another path. The launch of Kaya Coin could be the beginning of a new chapter in the history of cryptocurrencies. For the first time, lost bitcoins will receive a digital resurrection through a new token. This is a precedent that could change the approach to lost crypto assets. James Howells has become a living symbol of how every decision in the world of cryptocurrencies can have colossal consequences. And that sometimes the most expensive mistakes we make, we do so without even realizing it. His story continues. As long as Bitcoin exists, as long as its value grows, as long as technology develops, James's hope lives on. And now he has a new way to monetize that hope through his own cryptocurrency. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments, like this video if you found the story interesting, and subscribe to the channel. Many more incredible stories from the world of cryptocurrencies await us, where reality surpasses the wildest fiction.